Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
Excellent jam, Ceesay.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do dede. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Busel mu fine.
What?
Busel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Axina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave. Busel mu fine? Wave. Your money is yours.
It's coffee time with Peter Gomez on Tuesday, the 8th of July, 2025. And, well, it's a very nice day in the Gambia because it is wet. Now, people will find that strange to say, wetness and niceness. Yeah, because we are in the middle of the rainy season here in this country. And if it doesn't rain, it's not a rainy season, is it? So that's why we are welcoming the fact that it's been a very soggy morning. So soggy. Well, he's dry now, but when he just walked into the studio, he had patches of water all over him, but he's not complaining. Who is he? Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, Minister of Information, Media and Broadcasting Services. It's been 3 weeks since he was last on the program. He's here. He's been busy traveling the world, starting in China, and then where? Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning, Peter. It's good to be back.
You started out in China?
Yes, in China for 6 days.
Then
in Oslo for 4 days, and in Istanbul for 2 days.
Fantastic, fantastic. Doing what in China?
Well, actually, it's training on governance. Also,
ministers undergo training. I thought
capacity building. It's never enough. You should always learn how other countries have developed and how they are developing. That will help you in your job. So capacity building never stops. You gain new insights and new experiences, but also understand inner workings of other countries and how they work. So it was a very insightful trip.
Fantastic.
And
so
what
did you learn about the way China works that you would like to replicate here in the Gambia?
Well, it's about development planning. It's very stable in China. No matter which government, no matter which leader is there, they have a 5-year development plan, which doesn't change. And I think that is important because stability is important. Trust for institutions are important. When there is unpredictability and uncertainty, it's not good for development. So I think there is something that we can replicate here so that we have long-term planning and also the use of data for planning. I think China involves everybody. Their democracy is very participatory, very inclusive, and it's a bottom-up approach. I think that is also something that we should also replicate here, where we listen to the people and what they want, and we design policy based on the people's need, rather than people sitting up at the top thinking that they know what the people need and design policies for the people. Sometimes you get it wrong. It's important that you listen to the people. Then it comes up from the bottom that people tell you this is what we need, and you design policies to reflect the needs of those people. I think this is very important.
You call it their democracy. Is China's democracy everyone else's democracy?
No, they call it, democracy with Chinese characteristics. They have a form of social democracy, which they also call it socialism with Chinese characteristics, because it's important for us to understand the history also and the context. Now, what China has done is that they understand that unbridled capitalism is not good, because what capitalism does is that it believes, has trust in the market to generate wealth. But the market is not very good at distributing that wealth in accordance with the principles of equality. So what China does is that they have a system where, yes, the market is allowed to flourish side by side with state intervention. So if you have unbridled capitalism, where market is left alone to generate wealth and distribute that wealth, you create inequality in society. What China has done, and they're able to lift over 700 million people out of poverty within a very short period of time, is because they believe in inclusive prosperity. That is, yes, the market will flourish alongside state intervention. So the state also intervenes and take charge of certain critical industries, but also taxation and invest in people. So everybody is given the basic needs. So they're able to lift many people from poverty, millions of people from poverty due to that. So they learn from the capitalist system, but also they learn from Marxist communist system where it was purely state intervention. And we saw how that failed with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the disintegration of the Soviet Union. So what they've done is that they have a dual system where, yes, the market is important because it generates wealth, it promotes innovation, but at the same time, it is not good in redistributing this wealth in accordance with the principles of fairness and equality. So the state comes in and plays a critical role. So I think this is very instructive.
So what operates or what obtains in China is what many Gambians crave in this country. They want a flourishing market, but with state intervention. For instance, when they say price control, they are not necessarily saying go and fix the price, but regulate it in such a way that
regulation is key. Rigorous regulation is key, and I think that China has the CPC, which is the Communist Party, which is in power. They have 9 political parties.
We have the NPP, which is in
what
power
I'm saying. Their system is they have 9 political parties, but they don't compete. Instead, they cooperate and they coexist. So what happens is there is no competition.
Does Barrow not have up to 9 parties with him in government now?
But there is also an opposition called the UDP and others who compete for power every 5 years. In China, there is no competition for power among political parties. The CPC is the main party which leads, and all other parties support the CPC. So there is no competition for power as we have in liberal democratic systems. So it's very different. In the liberal democratic systems, we have competition for power every 5 years. And sometimes the downside is that it's not sometimes always to the benefit of the people, because when a government comes in, you tend to kind of stop everything that the previous government has done in terms of development, just to prove a point that when you are saying they are not doing well, you are right. So you have to start all over again.
Is that what Barrow did?
I'm not saying that is what he did. He never did that. In fact, Barrow inherited a very bad system that he had to correct. So that is the difference. But what I'm trying to say is that democracy is relative, subject to different interpretations across space and time. In ancient Greece, there are direct form of democracy where women were excluded in taking part in a democratic process, yet they called it democracy. In South Africa, during apartheid, black people were disenfranchised and they called it democracy. Even in the US in the 60s, black people were disenfranchised, they called it democracy. So democracy...
And here in the Gambia, Gambians in the diaspora are excluded, and we call it democracy.
Well, if you choose to use that analogy, it's fine. But what I'm trying to tell you is
that not the fact?
What I'm trying to tell you is democracy that is why the Chinese, they call their system democracy with Chinese characteristics, and nobody can. It's not democracy. For me, it's democracy. It is inclusive. It is participatory, and it gives results. It is impactful. I think every society, every epoch, you need to define your own democracy to suit your own context, to suit your own needs, and to suit the aspirations of your people, and to suit your own development agenda. Sometimes it doesn't work if you try to copy and paste systems that normally might not fit in your context.
I hope that loss of power for a fraction is captured in the pictures. What's going on with NAWEC these days?
Well, I'm not sure. I think everything is going well. Maybe they have some challenges here, but I cannot speak for that, so I'm not really sure.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go back to maybe the way you begin. I see you with a few papers.
Then I was in Oslo as well to attend the IGF, Internet Governance Forum, which discussed data governance. Remember, now the world is changing as we transition from engaging and interacting in the physical space to engaging and interacting in the virtual space. Also, it's important that, and data here is important. Before, when you in the physical space, when you have your money, you go to the market and buy something, only you and the seller knows what you bought. But now in the virtual space, whatever you do, whatever you transact, people know. You leave a footprint, and data must be governed. Privacy is important, and this Internet Governance Forum happens every year to discuss data governance issues. So it was also a very important event that I attended.
Norway was a private visit, was it?
It's not a private visit. It's
is it? No, the next village is
no, Istanbul also.
Istanbul.
Istanbul was the African Investment Day organized by some investors in Europe, and they invited me to go and give a keynote speech there to tell them why they should come and invest in Gambia.
So what did you tell them in that regard?
Well, I discussed the positives of Gambia in terms of so many factors, in terms of our regulatory frameworks, which are secure, the legal frameworks to protect investors, but also the potentials in different sectors, in the real estate sector, in construction, in tourism, in the agribusiness, and why Gambia is a new country open for business, but also it's a stable, secure democracy as well. So these are some of the things that we used to say. But also in terms of visa-free regime, many countries don't need visa to come to Gambia. It's easy to travel. It's not far from the rest of the world. It's strategically located. Gambia is in the middle of almost everywhere. If you are into export, you don't leave enough much carbon footprint if you export from Gambia to Europe. Unlike if you export from Asia to Europe, you leave a lot of carbon footprint. So Gambia is open for business. It's a new country. It's a stable, secure democracy.
Gambia is a new country?
No, what I'm saying, new in the sense that it's a new democracy. It was very closed at that time with threats from the former president, making many people because investors want.
It's not like life began with Yahya Jammeh. There was Gambia before Yahya Jammeh.
Yeah, but there was an interlude where Jammeh was in power, and because of his rhetorics and his actions, many businesses were scared to come to the Gambia because they could not ensure that their capital will be safe. We are saying now Gambia is open for business. It's a new democracy. It is stable. It is viable. We have good laws. We have good legal frameworks to protect investment and investors. So obviously, it's now time for businesses to come to the Gambia and do business.
And what's been the response from what you can tell?
I think it was very positive because many people didn't know even about Gambia.
Really?
They were surprised that
after 80 years of Barrow, they still did not know anything about Gambia.
We have a lot of work to do in selling.
And we had a foreign ministry that was,
Yeah, but not everybody can know. I mean, these are investors from different parts of the world. So some of them didn't know. They know about Gambia exists, but they know the potentials that exist in the country insofar as investment is concerned. And so it was a very good event.
Lots of issues to talk about. I've just mentioned the foreign ministry there. I mean, I understand you are in line. You're in line to become the next Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Well, I'm not sure about that. What I have here is updates from the presidency, if you may permit me.
Yeah, of course.
To discuss those updates, as you know, and I think you were there. The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, presided over the groundbreaking ceremony.
Why did you have to, prefix that by, announcing that I was there? I mean,
I just want the world to know that for the first time since I've known you, you've attended a government event, and we are proud.
That's not true.
He presided over the groundbreaking ceremony for the Sanyang Deep Sea Port on Saturday, 5th July, the foundation stone laying. Now, this port is envisioned as a transformative infrastructure project that will enhance the Gambia's trade capacity and serve as a regional hub for maritime trade. It will create significant employment opportunities, boost foreign direct investment, and support the growth of industries such as logistics, shipping, and agro-processing. Once completed, the port will strengthen Gambia's strategic maritime position, not only in West Africa, but also globally. This is a very important project, one of the legacies that the President, His Excellency, will leave as the first deep sea port in the Gambia. Like I say, Gambia is strategically located. Because of that, this port will transform Gambia into a maritime hub, serving not only European markets, but also Asian and also South American, North American markets.
I understand he made a pledge. I went there actually to listen to, what he might have to say in his speech. Unfortunately, I mean, planning and time management is a problem around, presidential events. What the, official program said in terms of, timing and what actually happened on the ground were completely different. I mean, this program was officially to begin at 4 o'clock with guests arriving by 4:50. The president arrives, and then the speeches begin. So by 7 o'clock, everything should have been over. But the president only arrived just after 7. And by the time the first 2 or 3 speakers spoke, it was 8 o'clock. Luckily for me, the president got up, I'm just learning now, to go and pray And we seized the opportunity to sneak out, having been there, after 4 hours plus. So basically what I'm saying is, they should be better time planners so that people, who come there to listen to the president get to hear the president. I was not the only one who left.
Yep. Well, I think those who organize these events will take note of this feedback. It's a very important feedback.
All right. But as I said, I wasn't there for the speech, but I understand the president made a pledge.
Yes.
That he will be, so invested in this project. Mm-hmm. He would more or less be the project foreman or a supervisor. He will be, going in at least once every month, to monitor the progress of work.
Yes, as usual, the president does that. The president is very passionate.
Well, and I'm saying, I just hope that this was not just rhetoric again, but that this would be followed through, because there's a lot of controversy over Al-Bayrak's, involvement with the Banjul port. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are saying that they are ripping us off. I mean, they have come over, taken over a port that is delivering, and it's 80-20. So it's time that they are seen, to actually invest in the country. And if they're saying the first phase is 200 million minimum, all right, and they actually get, to deliver a Sanyang deep sea port, I think it will silence, all the criticism. But until that happens, Gambians have a right to feel that they are being ripped off, if the arrangement is only confined to Banjul port. Because that's a facility, that is, up and running.
Yes, I agree. I think the 80-20, I think that has been discussed extensively here with other speakers. So I wouldn't go into that. That is very clear. It's not a rip-off, if you understand the numbers. But the president doesn't engage in rhetoric. If he says he will personally make sure that this project is successful, he will do it.
That's our wish. That's our wish. That's our wish. And we're glad he said it.
Yeah.
We will hold him to it.
Sure.
And everybody, around him. Okay, so let's move on.
The second one has to come from my ministry, the conditional lifting of the moratorium on radio broadcasting.
Conditional?
Conditional lifting. Remember, there was a moratorium on the issuance of radio broadcasting license after consultations, after freeing up some spectrum, but also after discussions looking at some other important issues. We have decided to conditionally lift the moratorium, and Cabinet decided this. The two conditions are very clear, that the radio license must be issued to serve a rural population, let's say community radio, but also the second condition is that you must have the technical and the financial capacity to provide nationwide radio. What we are trying to do here is that spectrum in urban areas is almost depleted. But also we have a lot of commercial radios in urban areas and very little in rural areas. What we want to do is to provide equitable access to information, so the rural areas also get access to information. So this is just conditional lifting. We're working on new guidelines. When those guidelines are done and we are satisfied, we'll do full lifting. But for now, it is conditional lifting.
Fantastic. Well done.
Now
so more radio stations coming up very soon.
Yes, but mostly either it's nationwide coverage or rural areas.
Okay.
Not only urban. Now, we have also another update from, you've already discussed that, the resignation of Dr. Mamadou Tangara as Foreign Affairs Minister is also another update. He is taking up a new job as the special representative to Mali and the Sahel for the African Union. And then
who's acting in his position? Who is overseeing the ministry?
Well, I'm not sure. That has not been announced, so I'm not sure who's really overseeing the
When
ministry.
he's not around, who usually oversees the ministry? When the Minister of Digital Economy is not around, I suppose automatically you oversee that ministry.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Minister of Defense.
Okay. So
Defense normally. In those occasions that I've witnessed that the Foreign Affairs Minister is not around, the duties are assumed by
Serigne Modou usually steps in.
Serigne Modou Njai.
The Minister
Why
am I
Defense,
That's
Minister
another,
of Defense
that's another
usually
person.
oversees this.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So that's
those are there are other updates, but I think for me those are the key ones. Except the one which I think is important with the validation of the Gambia's Road Transport Bill 2025. to change to succeed the 1948 Motor Traffic Act. Remember,
why is that important? What's
yeah, because I mean, 1948, we are still using a Motor Traffic Act which was designed in 1948, even before independence. I think this is a very crucial bill.
So what's new? What's this new bill changing? What are the significant developments in this one?
What will happen here is that updated traffic rules and vehicle standards will be included. Road safety education and enforcement reforms will be included. But also improved governance of public and commercial transport services as well. So these are all new features in the new act. In 1940, but also when it comes to enforcement, is important. Now, people sometimes see drivers act recklessly. They're taken to court and they are fined $1,000. And people say, well, we are not serious about fighting crime. No, it's not that. This is what the law, this is a 1948 law. And changing these laws will enhance security. It will also promote road safety as well.
I promised the audience that, I would ask you about your reaction to what happened in Parliament yesterday. Another rejection of another draft constitution.
It's unfortunate. We would have rather it passed. I think the opposition, the UDP plus the independents that are allied to them, deprived Gambians really of the chance to get a new constitution. They should have let it pass to the next stage, where negotiations will take place, and let the Gambians decide. So it's unfortunate. Constitution building in a democracy is fraught with serious challenges, because consensus is needed in a democracy, and getting this consensus across all parties is sometimes difficult. It never ends. Government will sit and rethink and re-strategize. It never ends. We are still committed to a new constitution, and then we'll get back to the public as the next move.
What do you think? What do you think it will take, to break this deadlock? The opposition laments the fact that if or whenever, I suppose this is experience. Their experience is once they allow a controversial bill, to get to the consideration stage, where now it becomes a question of numbers, they are always outnumbered by the ruling party.
No, but it still has to come back and get the 70, the threshold as well, the 2/3 threshold. So even if you get the numbers there, it still has to go to a referendum as well. So I think they should have given the people the chance to really decide on this. It's unfair for a few lawmakers to think that because of it's not in their interest for this to pass, for them to kill it at this stage. It's very unfair. And I think they have a lot to explain to the Gambian people, because they really deprived the Gambians of a constitution, and which I think it's unfair. They didn't look at the bigger picture. They looked at their narrow interests. If you have to be frank with this, there is no reason to kill this at this stage. So I don't think the UDP has any, and the allied independents allied to them have any reason to kill it at this stage, because they should have just let it go to the next stage where negotiations will take place, and there'll be, there could be consensus there to some extent. No constitution is perfect. Even the 2020 that they are calling for is not perfect. It has its imperfections. The 1997 has its imperfections. So you cannot expect everything to be okay. So I think at this stage, this was a very good opportunity for us to bring a new constitution to the Gambia. Take it to the next stage, debate it, compromise, consensus can be sought there, then take it to the people to decide what they want. But killing it at this stage really is very unfortunate.
How do you think the world will see us and our supposed, march to, greater democracy, a more open society, but more resilient society, grounded, in strong constitutional features, if you like?
Yeah, but I think the world will understand. People understand constitution building in a democracy.
Two consecutive legislatures,
but they know the challenges.
Voting down constitutions.
Yes, but it's not unusual for challenges to be encountered in constitution building in a democracy, and the world knows that consensus seeking sometimes it's very difficult. So this is just part of the process. It's a long process. Some countries, it took them years to get a new constitution. Some can move very quickly. So it depends on our constitution. That doesn't take away the fact that we are still a democracy moving towards consolidation. We have a constitution. It's not like we don't have a constitution. There's not a constitutional crisis taking place at the moment.
No, there isn't. Nobody is saying that.
Exactly. No, what I'm saying, there's a constitution which is working fine. Yeah. With all its imperfections, it is working. What we want is a new constitution.
Which takes us back to what Halifa had proposed. rather than try to craft in an entirely new constitution? Why don't you work on
piecemeal amendments on that? Maybe it's something we can consider as well. So, but like I said, constitution building is the business of every citizen, and government is aware of this and will engage, will consult to really design the next move. But what is important is that let people not despair. It is not the end of the road. Other countries have gone through this. They find it very difficult to get consensus in building a new constitution. In fact, those countries were in a more dire situation than us. They were in a constitutional crisis. There was no constitution. There was a big gap. We have a constitution which is working. So we will make it happen. Government is committed and still committed, as always, to make sure that there's a new constitution, and we work towards that.
So what are the next steps?
Yes, government will advise itself. We will advise ourselves as a government as to what the next steps are, and we'll
sit and write another constitution, in cabinet, pass it and bring it to the National
Assembly. No, but we never wrote
Assembly.
another constitution in cabinet.
Well, they say the 2024 draft is.
No, we never did. The 2024 is the 2020 draft with minor amendments based on outcomes of the negotiations and consultations we did with all the stakeholders. And I've seen people saying that we've done 120-something amendments, which is not true. I mean, almost 85% of the 2020 is intact in the 2024 draft. So I don't know why that 124, I don't know which software they're using to measure that, I don't know what, but almost 85% of it is intact. Now, like I said, even the 2020 they are clamoring for, they are calling for, it's not perfect. There are serious imperfections in the 2020 draft. So what's the difference? So let us allow this to pass. Even
imperfections such as, just bring up one or two. What don't you like in the 2020 draft?
Now, the 2020, I'll first talk about what I like in the 2020 draft.
Okay.
One is that there's a term limit. That is why I supported it.
Which you have in the 2024.
That's why I supported 2024 as well. Two is that there's 50+1.
Which you have in the 2024
That's why
draft.
I support both documents. Also, there is this quota system where we give affirmative action for more female participation in politics. Now, the things that I don't like is that it takes so much power away from the presidency. Remember, we have a presidential system, and creating a lame duck president in a presidential system is dangerous. Saying that the president cannot even appoint or sack your own ministers. You cannot even appoint or sack an IGP of police. I mean, there are things that they took away from the presidency that, for me, to be honest, and if you look at it, I think no disrespect to the CRC, the committee that made the constitution, but I think
the Constitutional Review Commission.
Yes, commission. I understand them. They are kind of haunted by Jammeh's ghost. They didn't want to create another Jammeh. Therefore, they took all powers away from the president, and leaving a lame duck president with no powers at all to do anything. And that is dangerous in a presidential system. You cannot accept that. So what we did was that to look at these things and make sure there's equilibrium of power in this system and take it to parliament. Now, like I said...
So what did you do when you say what we did was to give the president back his powers and even more?
No. What we did was that to leave those things that will work. For example, the president can appoint ministers and fire ministers because he's got the mandate to do that. We cannot remove that from the Constitution. Not even more. We did not give more. Like, I don't want to go into the specific clauses of the Constitution. What I can really discuss is that the Constitution was a good one. Would have been they should have allowed it to go to the next stage, and they'll negotiate, and then they'll have at least some form of semi-consensus, and let the people decide. Killing it at this stage really is unfortunate and unfair.
What was it killed for? What were the opposition's argument against the 2024 draft, for instance?
Well, I don't know what's in their mind. I think it's purely politics. I don't think they have the goodwill was in there to pass this constitution. They've made it very clear from the onset. Lawyer Dabo has said it from the onset that even if you remove a dot and a comma, they will not pass it. It means that from the onset there was no goodwill from the part of the UDP. He said it, like, even if you remove a comma, and that is not how you start discussions. You need to be flexible in discussions. But if you from the onset, even before negotiations start, you say even if you remove a comma, a dot will kill it. I mean, it means that there was no goodwill on your part to pass this, and they succeeded in killing it.
All right. Dr. Ceesay, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, the guest on Coffee Time right now, and I'll be turning now to the questions coming in for him. He always has questions when he is on the program. Good morning, Peter. Tell Dr. Ceesay Gambians are not happy with the recent bread price increment. It's just like a daylight robbery. The bakers did not increase the size of the bread. Yet government is keeping quiet about this. This will have negative impact on government. The so-called Bakers Union president does not have the interest of the country at heart. He is interested in money. The Ministry of Trade has failed the Gambian people woefully. And this is Mr. Njai texting in from Kololi.
Well, I think one thing needs to be clear. The government did not take part in the increment. The discussions were between the Consumer Protection Alliance and the Bakers Union. And remember, Peter...
Which is a government agency, for heaven's sake.
Which one?
Is it not the GCCPC?
No. The consumer is a civil society. They represent consumers.
The Ministry of Trade did not...
no, it was just facilitating the meetings between the two groups. But nonetheless, what is important, Peter, is
when you facilitate, don't you take part?
No, what I'm saying, but the decision... But remember, Peter, we have to also understand that the price of bread should have gone up a while ago, but government was always insisting that because of the situation, we are always against it. And we also have to understand from the point of view of bakers, the operational cost has gone up. And they are running they are even struggling to break even. So I think even with the increment, we still have the cheapest bread price in the sub-region. The last time I checked. So I think, yes, I understand.
Our salaries comparable with the countries that you compare bread prices with.
Yeah, but contextually, we cannot compare our salaries because the cost of living is different. The consumer...
so why say we have the cheapest?
But still, relatively, our bread is cheaper than all these countries like in Ghana.
If they are earning 5 times, 6 times what we are earning here, why would they not pay more for bread in their countries?
Yes, I understand your point, but relative to our earning, I think, Peter, one thing I can say is that government has always been against it. We've always suppressed it, even though it should have been done a long time ago. The bread price has gone up. I think we don't want it to go up. We understand the situation. But this is the situation. There's nothing we can do about it. Operational cost has gone up. Bakers also have a family to feed. They cannot be baking bread and then going at a loss. I think we'd rather increase the price just a bit as we did than for there to be scarcity of bread. Because if you force people to sell their products at a loss price, they'll stop producing. And if they stop producing, there'll be scarcity. And scarcity will lead to crisis. So I think we'd rather increase the price just a little bit as we did now to $12 from $10 than there to be scarcity.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, when government announced the increment in the price, they also announced that the weight was going to go up. Now that is where the problem is, and the government said they were going to monitor and enforce.
But if you increase the price, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. You increase the price and increase the weight, then that's why is the increment? And then
well, that's your problem. So why did you come out that is government? There was a press release.
Well, I think there's a standard weight which is issued. That standard weight should be complied,
Ismail,
and I think government is trying to enforce it.
Maybe this press release came in your absence.
Yes, it's possible. Right. I missed the press release. What I'm saying is that.
So let me tell you what the press release said. That there was going to be a $2 increment on, the $10 that people were paying for, but they were also going to increase the weight, and government was going to ensure that the weight of bread, went up.
Yeah, then so be it. Then we should enforce that.
So the complaint now, exactly, you should enforce that, government.
We will enforce that. We'll take note of this.
You're promising that you will
take note and we'll escalate it and make sure it is enforced. If that is government's position must always be enforced. So therefore we'll enforce this.
That's what we love to hear. Good morning, Uncle Peter. The government said they will be monitoring the price and weight of the bread in the market. Why will they monitor? Now, this is a completely different thing. Why will they monitor the price of bread and not other commodities like rice that are also measured? Can they do price control on all commodities or only on bread?
But there's no price control on bread. There's no price control on bread. That should be clear.
Why force bakers to, provide a certain weight of bread?
Yeah, no, they're not forcing them. There's a standard weight that applies. Just like, for example, if you buy rice,
what does the word enforce mean if it's not to force somebody?
They still have to comply to the weights that are by law, by regulation.
Have to means whether you like it or not.
Let's look at rice, for example. If we say 50 kilograms, it should be 50 kilograms. You cannot sell less than 50. That's also enforced. People cannot sell less than 50 kilograms of rice or sugar at a price of 50 kilograms. That is also enforced. It's not only bread. Just that currently we are talking about bread because that is the issue. We have an issue with that. We don't have an issue with rice. If we say you sell the cup of rice at a particular price or sugar, you sell it at that. If you do below that, we have to enforce that you sell it because you're cheating. So it's enforcement is across the board on all commodities. It's just that now we are talking about bread. That is why.
Good morning, Uncle Peter. The government employees are paying tax only on the basic salary, excluding allowances. Interestingly, this is not the case with the private sector. Private employees do pay tax on their gross salaries, which includes all allowances. These allowances are actually cost for staff when required, such as monthly house rent, airtime, transportation, etc. When these allowances are taxed, will there not be... it means that they don't have enough for the purpose. This is affecting Gambians working in the private sector. Can the information minister find out why this is the case? At least there should be a threshold on allowance to attract tax.
I'm not very familiar with the tax regime. This is a very important question that I'll engage the CG of GRA to shed more light on this. But I think it's a very important observation.
I think so.
Yeah.
People like me are waiting, for answers. If West Coast Radio gives me a house that costs the company $15,000 per month, they have to pay tax on that $15,000. Government gives you a villa, that costs $45,000 per month. You pay zero, all right? On all it's just your basic salary. Your transport allowance is not taxed, your whatever allowance is not taxed, but every allowance that a private sector employee is paid is taxed.
That's not equity.
Exactly.
Now, if you can send me that text, I'd appreciate it, and I'll engage CG.
This is the situation. You don't have to, why is government taxing the hell out of private sector employees and taking everything, just like that for themselves? That's the question. That's the question.
We'll engage CG.
The private sector is supposed to be the biggest provider of employment. And this is why people are leaving the private sector and going to government. And this is why the government is way too expensive, for Gambians. And we want a leaner, more efficient government. But yeah,
I think the reforms taking place under the leadership of Babukar Boy are very efficient and very effective, and that is what is planned. That is his vision for the public service, to make it more lean, more efficient, and more digitally oriented. I think we'll get there at some point. These are all new reforms that are taking place. I think so far he's doing a fantastic job there.
Ababakar. By boy.
Yes.
Peter, the government failed woefully, not even in regularizing bread, but cement as well. Out from the blue, cement is $500 plus. Ask the minister whether the Ministry of Trade will come and do something about it.
I think the price of cement has gone down. There was a period when the supply chain bottlenecks led to some sort of scarcity of cement, which led to hoarding and the price going up. But I think now the prices have stabilized. Jar Oil has brought in a lot of cement recently. The last time I checked, I'm not sure, let people not quote me on this, I saw something like it's gone down back to 390. I'm not sure, I cannot confirm that. But what I can tell you is that prices have stabilized back to the normal price. Yes, there was a short period when there were issues due to supply chain bottlenecks, because remember, we don't manufacture most of the cement in this country. It comes in bulk and it's packaged here. So when there are supply chain bottlenecks, obviously, these things are beyond our control. These things happen anywhere, anytime in the world. So, but now I think prices have stabilized. There's enough supply of cement. So that is history now.
This is not about UDP. This is about the Gambia. It's the people they are serving from their constituencies who asked that it be rejected. My MP of Kiang West has done extensive consultations with his people, but the majority didn't agree with the 2024 draft. And one MP from NPP didn't vote for the 2024 draft, Jibimbalo of Lower Fuladu West. So
no, that's not correct.
That's not correct?
No. All MPs except that the MP who wasn't in town, who is not in town, who wasn't at the assembly yesterday. But apart from that, all NPP lawmakers, all Doyle lawmakers, and then a few independents voted for the draft yesterday, taking it to 35.
Okay, all right.